Okay, let's jump in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty central for all of us, hope.
Hmm.
But we're tackling it from maybe a surprising direction.
Definitely. We've got these sources here, articles and notes,
Uh-huh.
looking at how the Stoics viewed hope.
And, well, what they thought was maybe a better way to go about things.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to unpack that.
Hmm.
Why were the Stoics, cautious about hope? And what's this alternative they're suggesting? It does push back against a lot of common thinking.
It really does. And, one of the sources kicks off with this really provocative question. Should therapists actually give patients hope?
Yeah, that hits hard.
Does it
So
say?
this isn't just philosophical musing, it's debated in psychology too.
Right.
And the material lays out two sides. One says, absolutely, hope is vital. It's like a survival tool in dark times. Keeps you going.
But then there's this other view, much more cautious, seeing hope almost like a Pandora's box.
Right, you open it hoping for good stuff, but maybe you just get more pain.
I like pain, though.
Well, the argument presented is that often people endure hardship, not just because of the present, but because they're pinning everything on a future idea, a better time that might come. Living for tomorrow, basically. Kind of, yeah. Yeah. And the tough question follows, what if that better tomorrow just doesn't materialize?
Ooh, yeah.
What if it's just, a mirage? And that's exactly where this Stoic perspective we're digging into becomes so relevant.
Okay, so bring us into that Stoic view. How do they connect hope and suffering?
Well, these sources point to a really core Stoic idea. Suffering isn't just random bad luck. It often comes from a specific place.
Wicked.
The gap, the space between what you expect to happen and what actually happens.
Mm,
Reality versus expectation.
okay, that makes sense. So if hope is basically a form of expectation, like I hope he changes, or I hope I get better, or I hope things improve.
And crucially, those are things mostly outside your direct control.
Right.
Then, yeah, when reality doesn't match that hope, that expectation, that's when the suffering kicks in. Disappointment, pain.
Yeah. So from this angle, hope isn't the cure for suffering. It could actually be setting the stage for it.
That's the provocative argument here, yes.
Yeah.
It ties your well-being to outcomes you can't guarantee.
Wow. Okay, that definitely turns the usual idea of hope on its head. But does that mean Stoicism is just pessimistic? Like, assume the worst?
No, the sources are clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about pessimism. It's about a clear-eyed view is what you can control.
Okay.
The central idea highlighted is trust only what's truly yours to manage.
And that's the big shift, isn't it?
It's huge. They don't invest their faith, so to speak, in hope for external events. Because, like one source says, if you expect nothing outside yourself, you can't really lose anything when things don't go as hoped.
So where do they put their focus, their energy? It's not on hoping for a better future.
Right here, right now, in this present moment.
Okay.
And specifically on the choices they make within that moment, choices aligned with virtue. That's the bedrock.
Virtue. Okay, let's unpack that. This seems key.
It is. The sources really hammer this home. The only thing you fundamentally control is your own choice, your volition.
Not what happens after you make the choice?
No, not the external results, not how people react, none of that. Just the internal act of choosing.
And they give examples, right? What kind of choices?
Yeah, things like choosing honesty, choosing courage, self-discipline. Moderation and love are mentioned too as key virtues.
Okay. And the reward. This is where it gets really different. The reward isn't getting what you hoped for because you were virtuous.
Exactly not. The sources say the reward is the choice itself. The moment you choose virtue, you act on it. Boom. You've already got the benefit. The fruit is in the choosing.
So the act itself is the payoff.
Precisely. And no external stuff, no praise, no specific outcome, no recognition, or even lack of it can touch the value of making that good choice.
Which, if you really buy into that, makes hoping for something external seem almost beside the point.
Yeah, or at least unnecessary. It shifts everything inward. It's about the action, not the outcome.
Let's use that example they gave about telling the truth. The virtuous choice is deciding to be honest, right? That's in your control.
Totally within your control.
Mm.
But whether the other person likes it or understands or agrees or thinks you're great for it.
Completely out of your hands.
Right. And if you tell the truth, the virtuous act, but then you start hoping for or expecting a certain reaction, like appreciation or agreement.
Ah, okay. That's where the potential for pain comes back in, according to this view.
Exactly. Because now you've attached yourself to an outcome you don't control. The teaching is pull all that expectation back. Don't expect the world to get better. Expect yourself to choose well right now. That's the only solid ground you've got.
So, just to be clear, based on these readings, are the Stoics totally rejecting hope? Throwing it out?
It's more nuanced. The text suggests it's less about rejection and more that, well, hope isn't needed. It's not essential fuel for living a good, virtuous life in their framework.
Okay, not needed. That's a key distinction.
Yeah.
How does this connect with their view of fate or just stuff that happens?
They tend to see events, fate, if you will, as following natural laws. Things just happen. Like a river flows downstream, an apple
Yeah.
falls off a tree. It's natural.
You don't get mad at the river for flowing down, right? You don't yell, "Why me?" at the river.
Exactly. That's the analogy. Asking, why did this bad thing happen to me, is seen as a bit illogical, like asking why water doesn't flow uphill or hoping the fallen apple will magically jump back on the branch.
And because you don't expect the apple to defy gravity, you don't suffer when it falls, you accept its natural course.
Right. And that kind of acceptance of events as just natural occurrences without demanding special exceptions for yourself, that leads towards amor fati.
Love of fate. Acceptance of fate.
Yeah, basically accepting what is. You don't suffer over natural processes because you weren't hoping for them to be unnatural in the first place.
Which loops back to this idea of hope potentially being a false need. Something we think we require, but maybe don't.
Exactly. The Stoic goal isn't about passively sitting around hoping things will improve. It's about actively choosing virtue in every moment, whatever the circumstance.
So you don't need to hope for a better world out there.
You need to focus on protecting your own ability to choose well in here. Honesty, moderation, courage, love those internal capacities.
And that final line from one of the sources is really striking. When everything else gets stripped away, what's left?
Only choice.
And the claim is,
That's all you ever really needed anyway.
wow.
Yeah. So in this view, hope isn't fundamental because the real power, the real sufficiency, lies in that immediate internal act of choosing virtue. It's deemed a false need because the truly essential thing, your power to choose, is always there.
Okay, so let's try to sum up this deep dive. Based on these sources, Stoicism offers this pretty radical alternative to leaning on hope. It's about shifting your trust, your energy.
Completely onto the power you have right now, the power of your own virtuous choices made in the present.
It really challenges that default assumption that hope is always good, always necessary.
It does. It asks you to consider a different source of strength.
And that brings it back to you listening. What might it look like for you to maybe shift focus away from hoping for specific outcomes you can't control?
And instead, pour that energy into the quality of the choices you're making, moment by moment.
Yeah. Think about that final thought we pulled from the material. When all else is stripped away, only choice remains, and that's all I ever needed.
Is it possible that focusing just on your choices, right here, right now, actually provides everything essential, making that external hope maybe not bad, but just unnecessary?
Definitely something to chew on.